So anyway, here's another thing that didn't make any sense. No, we said what they were going to do last week with Rey Mysterio and our friend Pablo Santos Escobar, where the winner gets a U.S. title bout, and obviously Escobar is the pupil or the protege, and Rey is the teacher or the mentor, or the hero, whatever the case. And they've come down to where they're going to have this match. And I predicted they're trying to make Escobar the new younger generation full-time Hispanic superstar. So Rey would need to not only give his blessing, but he would need to be able to defeat Rey in a clean fashion to kind of get that torch passed, and then they hug or hold their hands up or whatever they're going to do. Well, come to find out that's what they were going to try to do. But fate and concrete intervened. The bell for the first match, by the way, was 25 minutes into the show. And they did the handshake and clean wrestling, and then tempers started to flare mano a mano, and they traded some slaps. And Escobar rolled out, and Rey could hit his dive because they got to go to the break in 2 minutes. I don't know that they made 2 minutes or not before the break, but they had obviously more planned on the other side, or more than they got out at least. But when they came back, Rey was in control, but Escobar took over, and they were going back and forth, still clean. There was no heel turn. I don't know how much more they had planned, but to me, it never got into high gear. And it seemed like Escobar was kind of, mono face. Just maybe is he trying to remember? He's nervous. He doesn't want to fuck up in this situation. My God, whatever the case, but it didn't feel like they really. And also, part of Rey's appeal, as we mentioned, in every match, he fights from underneath because the size difference and a big heel that's on him. And he couldn't really get sympathy against a guy that he's having a clean match with and is not trying to fuck with him in any way. So, they were doing all their stuff. And then Rey misses the baseball slide dive, on purpose misses it, where he's going out under the bottom rope at Escobar. And Escobar gets in and hits a big flip dive over the top and fucking boom, hits just a shoulder block. It wasn't like a real dangerous thing. And Rey goes down backwards, and that's their break spot to go to break again. But apparently Rey rattled the back of his head on, it was either the concrete floor or the edge of that entrance ramp. And through the commercial break, he was out of it. And when they came back on the other side, the doctor was already checking him, obviously. And they just had to have the referee call it. He couldn't get his shit together because his bell had been rung. So come to find out, since that happened, that they were originally Escobar was going to win, so they got the right result, but he was going to do what we predicted, and he was going to beat him, and they were going to shake hands and or do another segment afterwards with Rey validating him, which he didn't get a chance to do. So give me your thoughts of the match, but also, does this tell anybody anything that one of the most experienced, safest guys in the world and another guy doing something to him that wasn't particularly dangerous as the curve is graded on these days, and he gets his brain scrambled? It can happen at anything, so why push it, is what I'm saying.
I thought the match was okay, and I agree with you. They clearly want Escobar to be a big star, and I just saw some footage of him, Cody, and Charlotte with a meet and greet before a show, and Escobar was really, really great with a fan who was emotional for meeting him, a young fan. So you could see why WWE likes him, and he's talented in the ring. This went awry. As far as your question about, I don't even know how to answer that. The one thing to think about is how many guys throughout the years got rattled like that and continued because there was no protocol, because people knew what concussions were but didn't realize the long-term damage of them. You know, how many guys saw stars and kept going? You know,
Well,
when they showed the replay coming out of commercial, I kept looking for his knee because I didn't even really understand what was happening yet. So I kept thinking, oh, he must have hurt his knee just because it's Rey Mysterio.
when they showed the replay, you can see his head go down, and even though he was obviously going backwards and he was tucking with the momentum or whatever the case, and when he goes down, his head goes whoomp one time backwards, and you hit bounce. And I couldn't tell whether he had slid into the edge of the entrance ramp or it was just the floor, the boom. But when you see that fucking head bounce once, and the thing is, I don't think he could continue because it's Rey Mysterio. If he could have, he wouldn't have been there for a while, and the doctor wouldn't have got involved if it was one of the old time deals where, oh, I'll shrug it off. I don't think he could shrug it off for long enough that, you know, in the old days, he would have got counted out. But, you know, that's the thing is, it can happen. You know, Rude took that crossbody from Sting
In Japan
on that
Yeah.
on that screwy stage they had the ring sitting on because it was in the Tokyo Dome, and that's what fucked his back up for good. And normally that wouldn't even have been there. But, you know, there's you can never tell when there's some kind of fucking stumbling block laying around.
And maybe that's where Sean got the idea for the casket spot. But Jim, let me ask you this. When we're talking about all this happening and we're looking at everything that is hot right now in WWE, what does it say to you that Austin Theory's kind of an afterthought? We haven't even talked about him.
Well, yeah, because he's always sitting in the fucking stands watching, you know, whoever's going to, this whole tournament to determine who's going to wrestle him. But in the meantime, he's just sitting up there eating popcorn. And you know, maybe somebody somehow sold this idea on a boy. It'll really build up somebody for Theory. But in the process, they've, you know, just had Theory sitting around watching what's going on. And I imagine he was not going to be interfering in this even originally if it had gone the way it was supposed to go, because it, you know, there was no reason for it. Escobar was winning. So yeah, he's kind of, but really, I mean, you know, we still got the bloodline.
And LA Knight.